Hi everyone, welcome back. Today is a very exciting video. We are going to be reviewing and using for the first time the new Patrick Ta Major Headlines Blush Volume 2 palette. If you know me at all, you know I ordered this as soon as I saw it on the Sephora app. I am the biggest Patrick Ta fan. I love the makeup, I love him, his work. I'm obsessed. I talk about his products all the time and I'm so excited to get into this palette. I am going to be swatching everything for you as well as swatching the palette from last year and his other blush duos to kind of give you a comparison in terms of the colors. I actually have every single color except one of his blushes, so I am a huge fan, as I said, and hopefully this helps you out in deciding if you want this palette or not. But the palette retails for $58. I believe it was the same price last year. I could be wrong on that, but I feel like it was also $58 last year. And this is what it looks like. So right off the bat, the packaging is a bit different in terms of the color. It's kind of hard to show without blinding you, but this one is kind of a matte rose gold finish, whereas the typical Patrick Ta packaging and the one from last year is a mirrored finish like this. And you can see it gets really gross because you can see fingerprints all over it. It's beautiful, but it's not the most practical in terms of how it looks after you've been using it. So this one is a bit different. You have more of a matte finish, so you don't have to really worry about the fingerprints, which is nice. And now I'm sure you've probably seen this, but here it is. So with this palette this year, you have 2 new blush shades and a highlight, which is new. Last year, they had 3 new blush shades. This year, it's just 2, and this, I believe, is their first highlight ever. So I'm so excited to get into this. Like I said, am a huge fan. I ordered this right when I saw it, and I've been waiting by the window all day, waiting for UPS to drop this off. So let's get into it. But before we do, I am going to go ahead and do some swatches for you that I will insert here. Okay, you guys, so here we have the swatches from the first palette. So this is not the palette from this year. This is the volume 1. Starting from left to right, you have the vibrant pink, which is She's a Doll. Then you have the very bright coral, She's Vibrant. And then the brown kind of beigey tone is She's Baked. So this is the palette from last year. Okay, I know most people like live swatches, so I'm going to try to swatch the new palette live for you. I'm not the best swatcher, so I apologize, but I'll do my best. So the first shade is Giving Flirty, which is a really cool toned pink with quite a bit of shimmer in it. I don't know if you'll be able to see on camera, but it does, if you look closely, have some shimmer in it. That is the cream formula, and this is the powder formula. So as you can see, this one compared to the previous one is a lot more blue toned. This one is just very bright and poppy. This one is a little more muted, a little more blue toned, in my opinion. Very beautiful. These, the matte and the cream, so the one from this year, have a little bit of shimmer in them, like I was saying, both the matte and both the powder and the cream. The ones from last year do not have shimmer, just FYI. Next, we have Giving Sun-Kissed, starting with the cream. So that is more of a corally, I don't know, kind of a corally pink. It's a little more muted than I was thinking it was going to be. It's a lot more muted than She's Vibrant from last year. So that is the cream. And then this is the powder. So we have Giving Flirty and Giving Sun-Kissed. So as you can see, the color tones, I guess you could say, are similar to these two from volume 1. The newer shades are definitely much more muted, not so poppy and vibrant compared to last year. And last we have the highlight, which is giving glossy. Now this is not going to show up as much. It's literally a clear highlight with a little bit of shimmer in it. So in the swatches, you're probably not going to see a whole lot of it, but it's clear with a bit of sparkle. And then for the powder, and again, this is giving glossy. So hopefully it's picking up on the camera. So the highlight is very, very glittery for sure. It's very fine glitter, but definitely pretty glittery. I'm excited to use these on my face. So hopefully this is helpful. Okay, so I hope those swatches were helpful. I know not everyone loves swatches, but I know some people definitely want to know what the differences are in terms of the colors. So lastly, I did want to kind of swatch a few of his powder blush duos that I do own. So we have She's So LA here. This one is not similar to any of them. This is a true bronze, almost a bronzer. That one is not super similar. Then we have this one. So this is She's Blushing. This is one of his newer shades. This one is kind of a beigey rose color. I would say this really isn't that similar to any of the colors from the palettes either. I would say it's probably closest to She's Baked from the Volume 1 palette. So this is She's Blushing. It's beautiful. One of my favorites, if not my favorite of all time from him. And then She's Baked. I will swatch for you. I think She's Baked, or I know She's Baked is a bit deeper, but I guess you could say the tones are kind of similar. So that's She's Baked, the cream, and then this is the powder. So they're a little similar. The She's Blushing is definitely a bit pinkier. She's Baked is a little more brown, but the tones, I guess you could say, are somewhat similar. I guess I'll just go ahead and swatch She's So LA as well next to these so you can see them. Last, we have She's So LA, which you can see is a true bronze. I use this quite a bit just in place of bronzer. So you can see they're all different. The She's So LA is more bronze, then we have more of a reddish, kind of a brick tone, and She's Baked, and then She's Blushing. Then we have She's Different, which is the kind of more of a wine color, which is not similar to any of them, I would say, but I figured since I was swatching, I would show you. And then the one I want to know how it compares the most is the She's a Doll from Volume 1, She's Flirty or Giving Flirty from this palette, and She's That Girl, which is one of his original cream and powder blush duos. Probably the one, I think that was the first one I ever bought and fell absolutely in love with it. Last, we have She's That Girl. I want to see how this compares to the pink in the other two palettes. I don't think any of these are really similar, to be honest, but I want to show you just in case you're wondering. So this is She's That Girl in the cream and the powder. So this is kind of a warmer pink. Definitely not cool toned at all. It's definitely a pink leaning a little bit coral. Then we have She's a Doll from Volume 1. So you have the cream and the powder. So much more of an electric pink. Again, a little more cool toned than She's That Girl for sure. And lastly, this is Giving Flirty from the new palette. Okay, She's That Girl She's a Doll from Volume 1 and Giving Flirty from the new palette. So yeah, these two are similar. I would just say this one is a bit punchier, a bit deeper, more pigment, and you don't have the shimmer, whereas this one is lighter and you do have shimmer in the powder and the cream. So hopefully that is helpful for you. Overall, I'm happy that none of them are the same exact shade. Yes, a few of them are a bit similar in tone, but they are all different, which I appreciate. Okay, let's finally apply them. So I'm gonna start with Giving Flirty, which is right here. It's the pink, the more cool toned pink. And I'm gonna do that on this side. So my left, maybe your right, and then we'll do Giving Sun-Kissed on this side, and we'll do the highlight on both sides. So I'm gonna take this Morphe Ariel A22 brush, and I am actually gonna do the powder first. You can definitely do either or with his formula, but I do really like using the powder first and then adding back that skin, pretty luminous finish with the cream on top. So I just tapped in one time. You can see a lot of color comes off here. This is a really wispy brush. I'm always pretty cautious when I've never used a color before. So I'm just going to lightly feather this on. Already I can see the glow in it. I don't know if hopefully you can see it on camera, but it's very beautiful, very different than his typical powder formula. I feel like typically, or I know, they're matte and they're still buildable and sheer like this, but you don't get that luminous finish typically from the matte. But these do have that bit of shimmer to them. Ooh, I love that color. So pretty. Definitely kind of similar to Dior Rosy Glow in the pink color, Bobbi Brown Pale Pink. It's that type of color to me. All right, so now is the fun part. I always like the cream the best. Could definitely use a sponge with this, but I like to use a brush. I'm gonna use this one from Real Techniques. This is the tapered cheek brush. And typically what I do with his blushes, or really any blush, is I get it on the brush and just kind of tap it off on my hand just to kind of warm it up so I don't get too much right off the bat. And then I'm just gonna lightly tap over this. If you know me, you know I love this color. This was the color this was the one I was most excited about in this palette because I love a good bright pink. To me, this is a bit more wearable on me, on my skin tone, than She's a Doll from last year. That one is beautiful. It's just a lot punchier, so I have to use a very, very, very light hand with that, or it can kind of get out of hand. So on me, this is a good color. I don't know how it would be if you have a lot deeper skin tone than me though. I feel like She's a Doll would definitely be the way to go. You cannot get volume 1 as of right now. I'm not sure why they didn't bring back volume 1 with volume 2. So you had the option for depending on what your skin tone is. But as of right now, you can't get volume 1, but you can get each color individually. So I'm assuming they're gonna do the same with volume 2 in the coming months. But as I expected, love that color. Moving on to Giving Sun-Kissed, which is more of, I was gonna say it's a coral, it's kind of more of a pastel coral color. Very pretty. I'm gonna switch to a different brush for the powder. So again, you get quite a bit of color on the brush. So I'm gonna do this the same way. I'm just kind of tapping it on. I don't want to disrupt my makeup underneath. So that's why I'm tapping. This is a very interesting color. It's definitely more peachy. It's definitely not quite as pink, but it does give off a little bit of a pink vibe, just a little more of a coral, but not quite as coral as I was thinking just looking at it in the pan. But again, you see that really pretty sheen. Kind of reminds me of an Hourglass blush, if you're familiar with that, the ambient lighting blushes. It's kind of what this formula is reminding me of. I'm actually going to use this Real Techniques contour brush for the cream, and I'm going to do it the same way, kind of getting it on the brush and then kind of tapping it off and just stippling it on. So this is giving Sun-Kissed and giving Flirty. So giving Sun-Kissed is just a warmer color. It looks more just like the name says, like you would look if you'd been out in the sun. This one is more of a cool tone, but they're both beautiful. They really are. I love the finish. Again, I would have to say the same thing with this color. I think if you are a lot deeper of skin tone than I am, I don't know how much this would show up on you. I mean, I think you'd have to go in really, really hard with it if you are a deeper medium to deep skin tone. This, I would say, I guess, is most similar to She's Vibrant from the Volume 1 palette, but very different. That one is very, almost like a fruit punch color. It's very pretty. This one is just much more soft, like a pastel peach. There is giving Sun-Kissed, and there is giving Flirty. All right, let's move on to the highlight. I'm so excited about this since this is, I guess, a new formula for them. They've never done a cream highlight. I would assume this means in the future they will be releasing individual cream highlights and powder highlights with additional shades, hopefully. So we're gonna go in with Giving Glossy, which is here. I am gonna use the cream first. I don't know, maybe I'll do cream on one side, powder on the other side. I'm gonna take a damp sponge and really get it on there. You're not really gonna be able to see because, again, it's clear. And we will put that on this side. So it's very pretty. It's very similar to the Makeup by Mario Master Secret Glow. Is that what it was called? The clear highlight. That's what this reminds me of, but this one has a little bit of shimmer, whereas that one is totally clear. I also think you don't really need the highlight if you're using these blushes because the cream and the powder both have a little bit of shimmer in them, but it is pretty. I don't know that I love that it's clear, but at the same time, then you could pair it with really anything. So I do like that. I guess we'll just do the powder on this side so we can really see the difference. I'm gonna use this brush from Charlotte Tilbury. I'm gonna get some of the highlight on the brush and just kind of lightly tap it on. So the powder is definitely a bit more intense. You get a lot more, I wouldn't say a lot more, but just a more intense radiance to it. It's very pretty though. If you use it on like a fluffier brush like this, I think you could make it not so intense. I also feel like this would be really pretty as eyeshadow on the eyes. But yeah, this is what everything is looking like so far. So we have Giving Sun-Kissed with the powder highlight on this side and Giving Flirty with the cream highlight on this side. I want to go ahead and finish my makeup and then I'll come back and we'll wrap up the video with some final thoughts. All right, you guys, so I finished the rest of my makeup and I wanted to wrap up the video with my thoughts on the palette. The palette is beautiful. I expected it to be and it did not disappoint me. I personally love it for my skin tone. It's a lot easier for me to use than the colors in the last palette. So in volume 1, I could definitely make those work, but I had to be very, very light-handed with all 3 colors. This one from this year is just much more user-friendly. If you have a fair, light medium skin tone, I really love these colors. Now, I do for sure think the one from last year is more versatile in terms of the number of people that are going to be able to use that palette. Last year's palette would definitely work on deeper skin tones very easily. It did work on fair and light tones as well. Like I said, you just have to be very light-handed with them if you don't want really intense color. So honestly, I wish they would have come back out with volume 1 with volume 2 so that you could have the option if you wanted the more muted one from this year or if you wanted the more intense color payoff from volume 1. I wish they had released them both. At the same time, although you can still get all 3 colors individually from volume 1, which is nice. So I'm assuming, like I said earlier, they will probably do the same with volume 2. If there's one in particular from the palette that you're wanting, I would wait in a few months. I bet they will sell these individually. For me, I feel like I will use this palette more than the one from last year just because the tones work really well on me. But I do agree 100% from what I've seen in feedback on this palette that the one from last year was just more versatile. More people could use it. I wish they would bring it back. Maybe they will, fingers crossed. We still have quite a bit of time before we get really in the swing of the holidays, so maybe they'll bring it back. I don't know, but overall, I think the new one is beautiful. The only thing I would definitely keep in mind is you do have shimmer. I shouldn't really say shimmer. It's more of just a radiance in the new palette that you do not have in his other palette or in his blush duos. The new one definitely has a little bit of the sheen to it. Some of this is coming from the highlight, but some of it is just coming from the blush itself. So if you're not a fan of luminous blushes, I would definitely say skip volume 2 and get one of his normal colors and the singles. I personally love a luminous blush, so this is right up my alley. I like the more muted colors. They're just a little bit easier to work with because they're not so intensely pigmented, but that's obviously personal preference thing. I do also like the highlight. I don't know that I can say I wish they put the highlight in instead of another blush color, although I do like that this palette is different from volume 1 because it does have the highlight. I did also want to say I did today put the powder highlight on my lids so that if you see this shimmery color, that's what I have on my eyelids, and it's really pretty for that. I like the cream highlight and the powder. I think I will definitely use it because I'm going to be using this palette. I don't know though if you're on the fence about it that you need the highlight in here. I would probably wait for them to come out individually. Overall, I really like this for my skin tone, but I do wish they would come out with volume 1 as well so that you had the option between the two. Thank you so much for watching. I love these videos. I love watching them. I love making them. I did do the same type of video on volume 1 that I will link for you if you are curious. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. If you're new, I hope you'll subscribe and follow me over on Instagram at simply.blair and TikTok simply.blair1. And I will see you next time for another video. Remember, simply be you. Bye.